Well, hello everyone. I'm Laura Murray. I'm the president of the National Museum of Language, and I want to give you all a very warm welcome, everyone who's logged in here in different time zones and different places. We're very happy that you're here for our special presentation by Orrin Hargraves. Mhm. So just to give you a very brief overview of the National Museum of Language, because I'm seeing a lot of names that I haven't seen before. Um, National Museum of Language is a unique all virtual museum. That means we don't have a building. We do everything online. Uh, we have a mission statement, which we spent more than a year trying to decide on. I'm just going to read it to you. The National Museum of Language honors and supports language acquisition, utilization, and preservation, along with linguistic and cultural diversity. Through our outreach activities and online resources, we celebrate the magic and beauty of human communication. So the museum was launched in 1997 and established as a 501c3 organization in 1998. And it's one of the only museums in the world devoted to a wide range of language issues. Um, the themes that we focus on, there's three of them. One is the universal aspects of language and how language is used, the importance of language in society, and then languages of the world. And I won't get into details of all, though we have a lot of linguists here. I'm sure that you understand what we're talking about with that. We did have a dedicated physical space for a few years from 2008 to 2013, where we hosted exhibits and speaker programs and outreach activities. But in 2013, we transitioned to a hybrid virtual museum, continuing some in-person activities in community spaces, such as speaker programs, and offering language activities in summer county summer camps and sharing exhibits with community organizations while developing virtual exhibits which are shared on our museum's website. With COVID in 2020, we transitioned smoothly to an all virtual format. Um, and we started offering all our speaker programs online and developing new online exhibits. This turned out to be good for us. This transition resulted in greatly expanding the reach of the museum beyond those who could have easily gotten to our physical space in College Park, Maryland. Another thing that we did to expand our reach is in 2021, we launched our liaison program. So for this program, we recruited liaisons from throughout the United States and elsewhere in the world to help expand awareness and support for the museum. Currently, we have liaisons in 40 of the 50 US states, as well as Washington, D.C., and several national language-related organizations. We do have some liaisons who are abroad as well. Um, we are supported through grants, and we've been fortunate to get some state level grants, being the state of Maryland, where we're registered every year from 2021 up through last year. We don't know what's going to happen this year because the federal and state grants are greatly reduced. Nevertheless, we continue to offer what we consider unique and engaging speaker programs, such as the program you're going to hear today, on approximately a quarterly basis, and all are open to the public and provided free of charge. In terms of our exhibits, major exhibits on our website include the 1812 exhibit, which details the evolution of American English following the War of 1812. And our speaker today, Professor Hargraves, was a great help with us in developing the 1812 exhibit. We also have an exhibit on the development of the Dictionary of American Regional English, which is founded at University of Wisconsin-Madison. We have Philagelos, the world's oldest joke book from ancient Greece, dating from about the fourth century in the Common Era. We have an exhibit called Sharing Our Stories, a collection of children's stories in 17 languages with English translations. And Another major exhibit we call The Power of Poetry, Resisting Injustice with Language, which features poems on social justice themes, right now from 14 countries, from ancient time to the present day, in their original languages and with English translations. So that just gives you a brief overview of the museum. And if we have time at the end, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, great. So now we'll turn it over to Greg for a moment to introduce our speaker.
Okay, thank you, Emily, and hopefully everyone can hear me. It's with great pleasure today that we're welcoming our old friend Orrin Hargraves to give us the talk today on dictionaries and artificial intelligence. Orrin is one of the few people that at least I know that actually is a lexicographer, that deals with compiling dictionaries. And if you look him up online, you'll find out that he's written a bunch of books. He'd been doing this for quite a while. I think he's currently at the University of Colorado teaching semantics. Well, also, if you go online, you'll find out that he's written some other things as well, like travelogues, which is always kind of interesting. I don't want to take up too much more time because I think we all know, about Orrin already. But I do want to just mention something that Laura said. He's an old friend of ours. Back when we had an actual building, he helped us with some exhibits. Laura mentioned the War of 1812 Emerging American English Language exhibit, and also the Dictionary of Regional English project that we were involved with as well. So it's always great to have old friends come back and tell us and let us know what they've been up to lately. So here's your chance, Orrin. Without further ado, the microphone is yours.
Well, and just before we get to Orrin, just a couple of administrative notes. Since we do have a pretty good sized group today, you kindly request that if you are not speaking, if you could keep yourself muted, that will be a big help in avoiding extra background noise and noise transfer. In addition, if you have questions, we love questions. Please go ahead and type those into the chat. We may get to some of them during the program if there's a natural segue. Otherwise, I know we will be allowing plenty of time for questions and discussion after Orrin's formal presentation. And finally, if you have any technical difficulties, feel free to message me and we'll try to figure out if it's something going on with our Zoom account or just something on your end, but I can try to help you troubleshoot that. So now, without further ado, we'll turn it over to Orrin, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Okay, hello everyone. I see from the list of participants there are several people here that I know, and so a special hello to all of you that I do know, and to those that I don't, well, by the end, we'll all know each other a little better, I think. This is a talk that I was happy to work on and to present. It's somewhat modified from a talk I gave a couple of years ago. And it also differs a little bit from what you read in the description, because the more I worked on the preparation of the talk, the more I saw that the real issue here is AI. Uh, if lexicography is going to survive, I think it has to find a way to coexist with and take advantage of chatbots and artificial intelligence. So I'll be talking about that a little bit more than was emphasized in the description of the talk. Here's an overview of what I want to talk about today, and I won't read these to you because you're capable of reading them yourselves. I'll start with a kind of historical view of how the dictionary business and the skill or profession of lexicography got to where it is today, and then move into where I think we can go in the future to keep things alive. I'm happy to entertain questions along the way in the chat. And of course, at the end, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions as well. So right into it then. I call this the post-dictionary world because so many things that we think of as, well, what we have always thought of as a dictionary traditionally is a book, such as you see in the picture on the slide there. For more than 400 years, when someone said dictionary, what they meant was a book. But I wonder if children being born today will ever think of it that way. If indeed they need the word dictionary, because perhaps their parents will tell them, you can look that up on your phone. Um, Two big results of the fading away of the dictionary world are that the brand names, the publishing companies that we have so long associated with language reference and authority are greatly diminished, and even those that remain probably don't have the authority that they once had. Obviously, there's been a lot of shrinkage in the dictionary publishing market, and a natural result of that is that lexicographers have lost their jobs. Um, Starting in the 1960s, publishers did the very sensible thing of adapting the gigantic databases of dictionaries and putting them into computers. In the 1990s, software came along. Sometimes it was developed by the publishers themselves. Other times, companies actually sprang up to make publishing software. And little by little throughout the 1990s up until today, everything that was unique about a lexicographer working in a publishing house has pretty much been stripped away. There are a few still left, lexicographers working in publishing houses, but there aren't too many. This is just to give you a snapshot of how things were back in the day. This is the beginning of a full-page ad from the Times of London. You can see the date in the upper right-hand corner, November 1993. And the theme of the ad, as you can see on the left-hand side, Christmas books. So to think, it was once kind of a tradition to give a language reference book to a loved one at Christmas time, and several publishers participated in this ad. They all have the same size ad. I think we can all agree that today such an ad would not appear, or if it did appear, it would be a very unusual thing. Let me go back to this slide for just a second, because the last point is one I want to expand on. Corpora and associated software have brought some tools of the lexicographer's trade to the individual speaker. I want to talk a bit about Corpora. I think many of you in the audience will be familiar, but for those that aren't, Corpora is an irregular plural of the word corpus. Corpus is a gigantic collection of text. It needn't be gigantic, but it should be fairly large. It consists of language that was written in the first place or language that was transcribed from speech. Corpora are widely used in lexicography because they give lexicographers a way to look at large samples of language in order to determine what the various senses of a word are or what a word means. These started coming into existence, I think, in the 1960s. At that time, a corpus of 1 million words was a big deal. But these days, a corpus of 1 million words is hardly considered workable. You need to have a lot more than that to do some of the things that AI and that machine learning do with corpora. So corpora, when they started being used, I would say widely in the 1990s, really made it possible for lexicographers to see large samples of language and to greatly improve dictionaries. I'll give you just let me share another screen here to give you a view of what you can do with a corpus. If, for example, you are tasked with defining the word cromulent, here's a gigantic corpus, and it actually has, as you can see, more than 1,000 instances of the word cromulent. And one thing you can do is just read through all of these and decide what the word means. But there are even more sophisticated tools. Here you see what we call a word sketch. This is a word sketch of the noun sandwich. And it gives you, at a glance, a wide range of the collocates of sandwich. In other words, the words that typically occur before and after the word sandwich. And this enables the lexicographer to very quickly and confidently arrive at everything that he or she needs to say about sandwich in a dictionary entry. So using corpora greatly, excuse me, I have to go back to my slide. corpora were really essential in improving the quality of dictionaries, bringing them up to the standard that we enjoy today. But in a way, they were a kind of a Trojan horse because corpora are also the things that enable AI to do the things that it does with language. And that's a point that I'll return to a little bit later. So as I say, this is what I call the post-dictionary world. Information technology has advanced to such a point that we don't really need book dictionaries anymore. Many of us enjoy book dictionaries. Just we enjoy the physical activity of opening a great big book and entering the pages and coming upon things serendipitously. But we don't have to do it anymore. The main point here that I put in italics at the bottom of the slide is that you don't need a dictionary if your phone can tell you a lot more about the word that you're looking for. It can tell you quicker because you'll find the word more quickly. And it may even be able to tell you a lot more that is of interest to you than you're going to find in a dictionary. So for that reason, I think the upcoming generations will be perhaps not familiar with dictionaries in book form at all, or if they are, they will look upon them as a kind of historic artifact. So, what does this mean for lexicographers? Well, we could see in the 1990s where things were going already when freelance projects started to dry up and there wasn't that much work around. Many retired or very quickly switched over to other professions, usually related to language, fortunately. We once had 4 main dictionary publishers in the United States. You probably know the others were Random House, Webster's New World, American Heritage. Those are all gone now, and we only have Merriam-Webster left. Thank goodness we have Merriam-Webster left. Dictionary.com is a gigantic website which was once owned by people that cared more about language, but now is owned by people that don't care so much about language, I think, and they fired all of their lexicographers. I want to share with you also this is a social media post from a colleague of mine, and you can see what she says here. After more than 16 years, my last day with Cambridge University Press was last Friday, and this was from September. And you'll see there at the bottom of the screen there, at the bottom of her post, that the reason she's lost her job is AI. In a few minutes, I'll get into the things that AI is doing that is making it very hard for lexicographers to find work. And it was already hard for lexicographers to find work. The language reference outfits that survive, I think, are doing a very good job of keeping their name out there and making themselves known. Most of you are probably familiar with Merriam-Webster's social media presence. If you aren't, I suggest you follow them on Facebook or Instagram because they're very amusing. Oxford University Press, publishers of the OED and many other dictionaries, also has a good presence. And Cambridge Dictionaries, even though they've just fired their chief lexicographer, has a very good landing page that's useful to learners of English. A few websites here, and I want to mention these in particular because of the names that go along with them. All of the names of people that you see here are people that I've worked with for anywhere from the last 20 to the last 30 years. And I'm sorry to say that today, none of them is full-time employed as a lexicographer. Aaron McKean, Orion, and Grant all worked previously at Oxford University Press when I was a freelancer there. Later, they developed WordNick, mostly under Aaron McKean's supervision. Ben Zimmer, I think everyone's familiar with his name. These days, I think he's constructing a lot of crossword puzzles, but he also had a long-running column in the Wall Street Journal. He worked for a long time at vocabulary.com. Dictionary.com formerly employed Grant Barrett and Corey Stamper. They've been fired. Jesse Scheidlauer, who used to work for Random House and then worked for the OED, has no longer works for either place though, but he has created his own science fiction dictionary website. These last 3 websites I think are particularly instructive because they all get lots of traffic, None of them, to my knowledge, was started up by anyone who was an expert in lexicography or dictionaries. They were started up by people who were experts in computers. And that has a lot to say with where the trade of lexicography is today, because in the end, language, along with all the many other things it is, language is data. And computers are great at dealing with data. And so if you want to make a really good website about language, having anything to do with language, you have to be really good with data. I'll divert a little bit here to talk about natural language processing because this is the thing that kept me alive for probably the last 10 years of my official career. Um, just as lexicography was, well, I don't want to say going down the tubes, but was being greatly diminished in terms of opportunities. Natural language processing was a growth industry. And fortunately, there was a big overlap between the skills that lexicographers had and what people in natural language processing need. We know grammar very well. Sometimes, sometimes we know it better than other people would like us to know because we can't shut up about it. But yeah, we know grammar. We know how to look at big samples of language and extract meaning from them. That's something that's very useful. We have a high tolerance for tedium and monotony, and boy, believe me, you run into that in NLP just like you run into it in lexicography. And we're great at word sense disambiguation. For many, many years, this was one of the biggest challenges of natural language processing. How do you distinguish the different senses of a word that has many senses when you see it in a sample of natural language? So for a long time, there were lots of things for us to do. This is a snapshot from corpus, the ACL corpus. ACL stands for the Association for Computational Linguistics. And you can see from the 1970s or let's say 1980, when the word lexicographer never appeared in a paper about computational linguistics, they became more important. It stops at 2015 only because the corpus itself stops there. I expect it would have continued for 2 or 3 years, and then my guess is it would also sharply decline after that. Um, NLP was happy to use this for a very long time, and lexicographers were instrumental in creating dozens of databases. Some of these you've probably heard of, others probably not because they tend to be used behind the scenes. These are databases that computers use directly more often than people use directly. But there are lots of them, and none of them would be as good as they were without lexicographers. Um, Web crawlers have also been able to do a lot of the work that had to be done manually to put together gigantic corpora. And this is going to lead us a bit into LLMs because it's gigantic corpora that enable LLMs to do what they do. So LLMs, I think everyone knows now, they stand for large language models, and they are a tool that came along suddenly, unexpectedly, and revolutionized so many things. In fact, they continue to revolutionize it today. Um, on this screen, I present what I call an imperfect metaphor, but one that I hope is helpful to people to understand how what LLMs do is so different from what was done before in NLP, how they sort of change things. To begin with, NLP took the view that maybe computers needed the same things that humans needed. When humans want to know something about words or something about language, they go to a reference book. So the idea was, let's make something that's kind of like a dictionary that a computer can use. That's what NLP did for probably 50 years. Um, LLMs, on the other hand, combined with artificial intelligence, took a different approach. They just said, language is out there. It's all around us. Everywhere you look, there's language. Let's just look at it and see what we can figure out about it. And so the way I think about this is that traditional NLP was kind of an adult approach. Let's consult an authority. The authority will know what we need to know, and so let's teach computers to look at authorities. Whereas LLMs don't really care about authorities. So they took more of the baby's approach to learning a language. It's everywhere. If you look, if you listen, you'll be able to figure it out. And that is pretty much what LLMs have done. Um, so everything that lexicography had to offer to NLP basically went away very quickly. NLPs need lots and lots of data to do the things they do. They need gigantic corpora. Uh, what LLMs don't need at all, and this was a great disappointment to everyone who slaved away in natural language processing for so long. All of these databases that we built painstakingly, monotonously, grad students working for $10 or $15 an hour over the course of their careers, notating words and noting their patterns to create all of these wonderful databases. LLMs don't need them, and AI doesn't need them. All AI needs is great big chunks of language to look at. So a lot of things kind of went by the wayside when LLMs came along, and everything that lexicography had to offer to NLP has also kind of has gone by the wayside. Uh, this is the headline from an article that was published in April of this year. You can find it online at Quantum Magazine, and I recommend it as good background on how GPT and other AIs that work with LLMs have, well, as the title of the article says, have broken an entire field. The entire field was natural language processing, and this great article interviews a lot of people that worked in NLP to get their reactions to, well, how they were kind of floored and knocked down when LLMs came along. This is another article from Quantum Magazine. Spookily, it was published on October 31st, and well, it pretty much tells us in summary form what we could expect. AI models can now analyze language as well as a human expert. Uh, the gist of the article is that AIs now are just as good, and I think before long will be even better than humans at discerning patterns and important features of language that escape the notice of humans, just because they have so much more power and they have so much more language at their disposal in a given moment. So, no, notice is up. AIs they're still developing. I don't want to say that they're coming for us, but they've certainly come for lexicography and lexicographers. Um, there will always be great dictionaries, things that we call dictionaries online, and I think they'll always be used by people. But the generative ability of LLMs now make using a chatbot a really good way to learn something about a word. And so if you think about how from the time that we were children, we learned to use dictionaries and look up a word, how to find it in the dictionary, all of that is going to be kind of old school. I'm starting to think that maybe it's going to be like cursive. You don't need to teach it anymore. And when young people come across it, if you put a dictionary in their lap, they're not going to know what to do with it, because when they want to know about a word, they already know that they just have to talk to their phone about it. Okay, so uh, some of you may recognize this as a double-page spread from a children's dictionary. I have special fondness for this one because this is the Scholastic Children's Dictionary. I was associated with it for 10 years, the chief lexicographer. And this is a double-page spread from the last time the dictionary was updated, 2017. I don't think it will be updated again. The reason that things like this exist, the reason that there are children's dictionaries is that they're kind of dictionaries on training wheels. They're designed to teach children how to find a word alphabetically, and they have lots of extra features that an ordinary desk dictionary wouldn't have to draw children in, to make them see that, oh, this is a really cool book. I want to use this book some more. I want to look at the pictures and learn all about words. Is that even going to be relevant anymore? In book form, probably not. I think and I hope that there will be really good websites developed online for children to use to learn about words, but I'm not sure that they're going to need these books anymore. They probably don't need to. They probably don't need to learn how to look up a word alphabetically. They can just say the word into their phone. Um, So let me pause there for 1 minute because I'm about to kind of go into a different direction in the talk. I see there's a couple of things in the chat. Are there questions or are there things that I need to know before I proceed?
Yeah, so there were a couple of comments.
Sure.
And so I think, Martin, did you want to give your comment?
Sure, just that I've seen this. Sorry, I've seen this thing that when you're talking about fake it till you make it. It's just the computer has to give an answer.
Mhm.
Generative AI has to generate, and so it has to give an answer on something, whether or not it has a basis for doing so. One thing that I'm interested in as you go along, actually, while I have the floor, is I mean, you're speaking from a very English perspective. I come from the African language perspective, where there just really is very little data involved at all. So there's no large language model at all. So it's just a different scene, but they still have to generate. So if you ask it about an African language, generally speaking, they'll pretend to give you an answer that's really quite scary.
Yeah, you have anticipated very well something I'm going to talk about in detail later in the talk.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the comment. Oh.
Great. And then we have another comment from Beth, if you want to give your comment.
My comment was really just the equivalent of nodding vigorously because I teach at a university and I have one class where students do antedating research, and most of them tell me they've never ever opened a dictionary. They may have been given a dictionary as a child, they just never saw the point. So
Huh.
nodding vigorously to what you were saying about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of sad, not seeing the point, especially since Merriam-Webster just went to the trouble of producing and printing the 12th version of the collegiate. My guess is that it's not going to be the high school graduation gift of millions like it used to be. I'll certainly buy one, but gosh, yeah, it's sad to see that era passing. Um, Anyway, for the next part of the talk, I want to get a little bit into why artificial intelligence has upset lexicography as much as it has. And so to get into that, have a look at this page. This is from a corpus. It's a bit like the page that I shared earlier, but you see that the target word here has been whited out. That's because I want you to put on your thinking caps and think of the one English verb that makes sense in every one of these sentences. When you think you know that verb, you can type it into the chat. Whoever's monitoring the chat, read out the words to me, and as soon as we land on the right one, we'll figure out who. We'll decide who came upon the right verb first. I should also say that two of the chat GPT well, three of them that I gave this task to, one of them solved it in under a minute, but don't feel that you have to.
Okay, so one person said settle.
Okay, all right, that person gets the prize. That person is as good as an AI. Yeah, settle is the verb that works there. This is an exercise that when I was teaching semantics at CU, I often gave my students, and typically what happens is that you get a couple of wrong guesses in the class because you just call on people and you try to impart the idea that there's nothing wrong with being wrong, but eventually people get it because even though the settle, it's a wonderful English verb that has many, many meanings, but it's the only one that will work in all of these sentences. So here's what I did. I devised a two-part task for these three chatbots: Copilot, ChatGPT, and Gemini. The first part of the task was what I just showed you. Take a list of sentences with a verb missing, identify the one verb that works in all of them. The second part of the task, I said, okay, so now take all the sentences that you see on that page and write dictionary entries that will exemplify all the senses that are used by, in this case, the verb settle, in the sentences that I gave you. So Gemini solved it, part A of the task in less than a minute. The other two, Copilot and ChatGPT, both guessed wrong to start with, and that's just like a human. And like Martin said a minute ago, um, an AI has to answer. They have to come up with something, and as I'm sure all of you have seen, they're so all apologetic when they get it wrong, but they do sometimes get it wrong. So here's a couple of responses that I got from the chatbots. This one was the first guess that I think came from ChatGPT, who said the single verb that makes sense is leave. And then I said, well, no. ChatGPT continued and said, do you want me to go line by line through the whole image and show you how leave fits? And I said, if you do that, you'll see that you're wrong. And of course, then ChatGPT looked at it again and got it right. Um, this is Copilot. Copilot bombed on this. After Copilot had been idle for 5 minutes or so, I said, are you still working on this? Because the other chat engines did it really well, and you're just kind of sitting there. And then you can see that the Copilot was very apologetic, but then immediately afterwards just started to hallucinate. The sentence, it says the correct verb is turn. This was not its first incorrect guess. This was the second incorrect guess. Um, and they still didn't get it. So anyway, at this point, I abandoned Copilot because it still didn't even understand the task. But I gave Gemini and ChatGPT the opportunity to produce dictionary entries uh, with the various senses of settle that it had seen. In my experience, if I'd asked a lexicographer to do that, would have taken probably an hour and a half to get a first draft of dictionary entries. The chatbots did it in just a couple of minutes. And the quality here, I picked up this great quote from Erin McKean. She's quoted in Stephen Fatsis's new book. She says they can do as good as a middle-aged lexicographer with 15 citations and a pressing deadline. So there's a sample of what Gemini did. Yeah, just a sample. I think they found 8 senses altogether. But, it's not a bad job. It's the kind of thing that if you tasked a lexicographer to do the same work, they would probably come up with something quite similar. You'd have to pay the lexicographer more, and it would take them longer. But the quality is really not bad at all. So that's kind of where we are then with AI and chatbots. I wouldn't say that they can replace lexicographers, but they can do a whole lot of things that we've been doing for the last 400 years. They can do them quickly. And in a big language, they can do them accurately. You see there that I say that they can perform competently for large languages, and by that I mean languages that are spoken by millions and millions of people around the world, and that have a digital presence of millions and billions of words. Um, so many of the things that lexicographers and dictionaries have done for centuries now seems to be on its way out because artificial intelligence is now able to take over a lot of that work. So the question is, what happens to us? I'm not worried. I'm 72 years old. I've already effectively retired, and I feel greatly honored and privileged to have been a lexicographer for 35 years. I certainly wouldn't want to make my wouldn't want to make my living at it today. I couldn't, and I hardly have for the last nearly 15 years because I worked at a university, having run out of dictionaries to work on. We do have a really interesting and valuable and specialized skill set. And so the concern is what's going to happen when people are no longer learning how to be lexicographers because there really aren't that many dictionaries to work on. It doesn't happen without institutional support. That always takes a lot of money. But what I hope is the saving grace, and this is what I'll get into now in the last part of my talk, is that smaller languages really do need lexicographers. So what do I mean by smaller languages? Languages that don't have many speakers, languages that don't have much of a digital presence. In other words, if you're looking for something online that is written in that language or even written about that language, you're not going to find very much of that. Those are referred to as low resource languages in the trade. And finally, languages that are disfavored by governments, that are suppressed or ignored for various reasons. These are all languages that lexicography can do a lot for. Um, these are if any small language is going to become even a medium size or a big language, it needs to have a bigger digital footprint. And lexicographers are really experts at making that happen. We can do all the things that need to be done. Well, except we're not rich. We can't provide the money. But we can do all the other things that need to happen to bring a smaller language up to a point where it can compete or even be noticeable in a world that's really dominated by the hegemonic languages of the world, the ones that have millions or even billions of speakers. So the question is, could AI do this? And the answer is, fortunately, no. As Martin alluded a few minutes ago, and is really the case, AI only works with lots and lots of data. AI without a large language model, uh, it will be able to hallucinate effectively, but it won't be able to do what it does with the big languages. A language that has less than a million tokens. Token here is a technical word. It doesn't mean a million different words. It means a million instances of words. So a language that has fewer than a million tokens isn't going to give you anything very scalable in either a corpus or for machine learning or AI. The chatbots that we're working with now are being trained on billions of words, and so obviously that only works with a big language. It doesn't work with a small language. Lexicographers can do all these things with smaller languages to at least enable them to compete in a world that's dominated by big languages. And I think it's really worthwhile doing that because linguistic diversity is something we need to value the same way that we value biodiversity. Um, so here's a case study. I just last month I visited Morocco, uh, not disinterestedly because 40 years ago I lived in Morocco. So this was kind of I was a Peace Corps volunteer there, and so this was a kind of nostalgia trip for me. Uh, what I found was really very interesting in relation to the Berber languages of Morocco. When I lived in Morocco, many people spoke Berber. I did live in a Berber village, and so probably most people there spoke Berber. Despite it being the first language of many Moroccans, it was I won't say it's actively suppressed, but it was the next thing to that. It had no official status in education. Nothing was written in it. It was purely a spoken language. So starting at the beginning of this century, the Royal Institute of Amazigh Culture, I put royal with a kind of flair there because nothing happens in Morocco if it doesn't have the royal imprimatur. Amazigh is kind of a generalized term for Berber in relation to its culture and language. So in the early part of the century, it started doing all these things, developing curricula for instruction in the Berber languages. It standardized one version of a Berber language, and that is an important qualification that I'll get to in a minute, using an alphabet that it decided was native to the language. Identified synonyms across dialects, expanded the way the verbs work and conjugate, and borrowed languages when there was a need. So those 5 points there, all of those things were done by lexicographers. Who else could do such things? Only lexicographers could carry off a task like that. And as a result, the language that's called Standard Tamazight became an official language in 2011. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit into the weeds about this because it gets into why smaller languages can be somewhat problematic and why they need lexicographers. Uh, Here is a snapshot of a language called Central Atlas Tamazight. By the way, this is from a website called Ethnologue, and I really recommend it to any of you who are interested in the world's languages. Look closely at the 4 diagrams here. You see the Central Atlas Tamazight is spoken in Morocco. The yellow dot in the map on the left kind of highlights the area where it's spoken. It has roughly, what, 500,000 native speakers. It is viewed as endangered. It's hopefully its digital presence is ascending. Here is standard Moroccan Tamazight. You'll see the yellow dot has moved to the coast. That's where all the money in the capital and all the biggest royal presence is in Morocco. Native speakers, it has none. And it is what's called an institutional language. In other words, a language that is pretty much created out of languages that it's related to, and it is an official language. It became an official language, as I said, in 2011, but it isn't in itself a language that anyone speaks. So the question is, what's going on here? Why did they even do this? When they had this language that had 500,000 speakers, why didn't they make it the official language? There's a reason for that. So today, government signage now includes Tamazight. As you can see a sample of its alphabet in the middle line of each. The middle line here is the alphabet that was chosen to represent standard Tamazight. The second paragraph here kind of gives you the fuller picture. Morocco actually has three main Berber languages: Tamazight, Tashalhait, and Tarafit. And you can't make a single language out of all of them because they're not entirely mutually intelligible. So a decision had to be made. Which one of these languages is going to be the best representative, not necessarily in the view of lexicographers, but in the view of the Royal Institute, which is the language that we want to use as our basis, and they chose the Central Atlas version of it. So, anyways, I said I wanted to take you a little bit into the weeds with this because languages are messy. They're not math, they're not science. There are always messy bits, and as soon as you start mixing into language, you start mixing in cultural and political considerations, they get messier. There are always very strong views about the way to do something. Even now, more than 10 years after Tamazight is an official language, there's debate about whether it should have used that alphabet. Wouldn't it have made more sense to use either the Latin alphabet or the Arabic alphabet? Because everyone knows those already. Those are used in education. So why don't we write Berber in that and in one of those scripts, and then people would read the words more often instead of having to learn a different alphabet. So that was a decision that upsets people. The most powerful stakeholders in working with smaller languages are not necessarily the speakers, so they don't get to make the big decisions. And I would also make the point that maybe now is not the time to judge whether everything that was done with Tamazight in Morocco was the best thing. Maybe 50 years from now, it will look like it was the best thing. It's hard to judge the results of something that's so recently come into view. Near the end of the talk now, I just wanted to put up this map to give some idea of what we lose if we don't value linguistic diversity. This is a map of languages spoken in North America before European contact. They are countless, and actually this map is a bit simplified. Within each of these big color zones, there are probably any number of dialects. Many of these languages have already disappeared. Some of them are extant today, but I would say nearly all of them are endangered. And this is a place where lexicographers can make a difference. If they can find funding to work on projects, we have all the skills that are required to bring a small language or an endangered language or a disappearing language to make it viable again. So in my view, this is where lexicography has to go if it's going to survive as a profession. We won't always get it right, but I think anytime you're working with a language that's in trouble, if you want to revive it, resurrect it, keep it from dying, you want to have a lot of lexicographers in the mix, because if you have politicians and bureaucrats making the decisions, they're probably not going to get it. They're not going to get it right as often as lexicographers are. So anyway, that's what I got. I've come to my last slide, and I'm happy to entertain questions and discussion.
All right, it looks like Oren is back. So we can go ahead and resume. Looks like we've actually gotten quite a few questions and comments in the chat. So we can go ahead and get started with Gary's question. Gary, did you want to ask your question?
If dictionary.com had not, I can't even find my comment.
No, I see it here. You say, wouldn't it have still chosen
6-7. 6-7. You have to do the hand motion with it. Has its word of the year. Yeah. Especially when I look in dictionary.com and in Urban Dictionary and Merriam-Webster online, of course, because I don't have enough shelf space for a lot of dictionaries. They say it's an undefined term. Sorry, it's a nonsensical term. I only found out about it from my grandchildren, who are of that age that they like to do these things, I think, to annoy older people. And I think once older people start using 6-7 a lot, I think it'll drop out of use very quickly. It's a TikTok word, basically.
I don't give a lot of credit. There are a number of, let's say, more prestigious designators of word of the year, and dictionary.com is not one of them. Yeah, I think if I'm interested in what OUP has to say as the word of the year, and what Merriam-Webster has to say, and what the American Dialect Society has to say. But you got to remember, dictionary.com is a website that's looking for clicks. It's not it's not a website that specializes in language expertise. So I don't have anything to say about that. But I don't take it very seriously.
But the other dictionaries are acknowledging it as a word. I mean, it's in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It's in other ones, not just Urban Dictionary.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a word. I'm just saying that I don't. I have no comment on what dictionary.com does. It doesn't really figure in my constellation.
Got it.
Martin, it looks like you have the next question.
That was more just a follow up on my previous thing. I plugged, while you were talking, I plugged in to a language called Oshiwambo, which is spoken by about 3 million people in Namibia. And the AIs all really love giving these fake answers in Oshiwambo, which has basically the data that's available is from New Testament translations. But it's enough to pretend that they have some Oshiwambo words, and that's pretty much the case with most of the African languages that have any sort of data at all. There are 500 odd Bible translations that are sort of sitting at the base of a lot of the what's available to LLMs, and you can take it from there.
Yeah, I think that it brings up a point related to what I was saying. But another important point is that the sample of language that's available to LLMs has to be language that comes from the speakers of the language, as opposed to coming from the people that colonized the speakers of the language. I think, well, I hope in the next 20 years there will be funding that enables speakers of languages to direct where knowledge about their language goes, rather than letting the great powers of the world and the speakers of big languages decide what happens with small languages.
Yeah, absolutely. Techno-colonialism, I think, is the word that pretty well describes that.
Yeah. I have a colleague at CU that's very interested in that, wants to do his doctorate on it, and I hope that he succeeds. Mm-hmm. Grammar Girl, you're up next.
So yeah, I think she can't come online to ask the question directly, so I'll ask it for her. She said, did I understand correctly that there are no native speakers of the official language of Morocco, but that this language is now taught in schools?
I have conflicting information about whether it's taught. I know that the Royal Institute did develop pedagogic materials. Ethnologue, however, says that the language is not taught in schools. So, unfortunately, I didn't speak to any school children while I was there. My guess is that it probably, especially in Berber-speaking areas of the country, I think it's probably being introduced. And I think anyone at university level probably has the opportunity to study it. But it still is really a fledgling language. Let me just for a minute share another screen if I can find it here. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this one. So do you now see on your screens a page that is written in a language that you don't know?
Yeah.
So interesting thing about this page is that when you load it, Google is going to pop up and say, do you want me to translate this page? Because Google's not ready to translate it yet. This is the landing page for the Royal Institute. The page is also available in French and in Arabic. But you see, this is part of the problem that smaller languages struggle with, and maybe points up possibly the mistake that they made in choosing to have a unique alphabet. There aren't standard ASCII characters yet for all of this. They do have a lot of resources now. Let me just show you the page in French, which will bring us a little bit closer to something comprehensible. They have an online dictionary. They have an explanation of the alphabet. They even have an app. But I'm not sure that presenting the language in its unique alphabet is ever really going to catch on. Maybe 10 years down the road, if you only ever see this alphabet on a bus stop, people are going to decide that that was the wrong way to go. It's too early to tell. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers the question. I'm not sure to what degree it's taught in school, but I think it's available at the primary level and at the university level.
And it looks like Mignon had a follow-up comment and question, said, very interesting. I'm curious how it's useful then or being used. Is it more aspirational than useful?
Certainly it's aspirational. And if we take the long view, let's say children today in Morocco who are beginning to see this alphabet around. In other words, if they live in a city and they're riding the streetcar or they're walking by a government building, they're going to see this alphabet that's at that point will probably not be familiar to them. If that piques their curiosity enough to ask, well, what is that? And they'll say, oh, well, that's the Berber alphabet. You speak this language already. You just haven't seen it written yet. Maybe in 50 years it's going to pay off. I don't know whether it was. I don't know whether it's the right decision. It's somewhat aspirational. It's also, though, a little bit political because even though Berbers make up maybe a quarter of the population, the dominant cultural influence in Morocco is Arab rather than Berber. And the Berbers for a long time have felt kind of suppressed. And so some people say that the government's decision to raise the awareness and the level of Berber is just kind of a biscuit thrown out to the Berbers to make them feel better about who they are. So yeah, it's a question that can't be answered now, but it will be interesting to see how it unfolds in the future.
Great. And then I think we have a question and some comments from Greg.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of them, but I guess let's take them one at a time. Oren, from my experience, AI makes a lot of mistakes. I mean, I'm really surprised at just the amount I've seen. And I'm just wondering, this isn't a good sign. What kind of quality control is there? In terms of dictionary if AI is going to be the new dictionary, what kind of quality control mechanisms are there?
Yeah. Well, as I said near the end of the talk, AI is not yet going to replace lexicographers. There's always going to be human oversight because, as you say, a lot of mistakes are made. Um, AI is going to be really good at the task that I showed you, defining a word like settle, because settle has been in English for more than 1,000 years. And at the moment, it's probably not developing many new meanings. And so I think you could be confident in what AI comes up with when you ask it to define settle. If you ask it to define a word that's only recently been coined, then it's going to start hallucinating. And that's why you still need some human oversight to make sure that what AI is spewing, is generating, is actually related to reality in some way. So I wouldn't worry about the quality of dictionaries. The few that are being made have very good quality controls.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And then I think our next question is from Jane.
Yes, you said, I believe that a lot of the impact was foreseeable and maybe even preventable. What should we have seen and what should we have done?
Right. I think that comment came from my colleague who was recently fired. Yeah, she's the one who said it was foreseeable and preventable. Really, I need to ask her that question because I'm not sure. Does she mean that her employer could have foreseen that she was going to be redundant and therefore could have found something better for her to do? Or does it mean that she should have seen what was coming and she should have made it clear to her employer that she still had something unique to offer them? I don't have the answer to that question. But as far as the preventable bit, I don't think it was very preventable unless in a personal way. In other words, perhaps she could have persuaded her employers early on that she still has something to offer them because clearly they decided that she didn't and they let her go. Even though she's worked there for more than 15 years and has been a lexicographer for more than 15 years before that. So she's, along with me, and not to be boastful, of the lexicographers I know in the United States, the two of us started the earliest. So they weren't letting go a novice. They were letting someone go who had very deep and thorough experience in lexicography. And I'm sorry that doesn't answer your question because I don't have the answer exactly.
Thank you.
All right, then we have a question from Shai.
Let's see.
Okay, I do see Shai on the call, but if they're not able to get,
Yeah, he had a comment earlier, but I'm not sure he had a question.
yeah, there's a question, which is, okay, doesn't have audio, so I'll ask the question. Are LLM impacting other language-related professions like language teachers or fiction writers?
Boy, certainly fiction writers. I mean, because you can ask an AI to write a short story, they might even write a novel for you. I don't know how good it would be, but it would probably be as good as a lot of self-published fiction is today. Uh, I don't know of anyone in education who isn't, well, everyone is impacted by AI. I would almost go so far as to say that everybody is using AI. The last The last class I taught at CU, Greg mentioned at the beginning that I taught semantics. I used to teach semantics. I'm retired from that now. I was retirement age, but the last time I taught that course, two things happened. I was dealing with students who had started their college career during the pandemic, and that kind of wrecked them in ways that I hadn't anticipated. But more importantly than that, they were starting to use GPT. They were using it on their homework. And it was obvious to me that they were using it on their homework, even when they denied that they were. And I ended up, well, when I stopped teaching, I ended up thinking that the kind of education that I got, and mind you, that was a long time ago. I graduated from college in the 1970s, but I got what I thought was a first-rate college education, a really good education. And when I taught at college level, I tried to give students that same education. I wanted them to read a lot of things, I wanted them to think about a lot of things, and I wanted them to write. These are three things that my students were not interested in doing. So yeah, everybody in education, without a doubt, is impacted by AI and large language models.
Great, thank you. And then I think we have a couple of additional comments from Greg.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point. I think what's missed sometimes is if you look at a dictionary, I'm talking about the old hard copy, like the Webster's or whatever, at the end, they often have other things, like charts, a listing of state capitals, stuff like that. And I think, when you get rid of those dictionaries, certainly you can find that stuff online, but it's you have a number of things that you're being given with these dictionaries. So I think it's a mistake sometimes to think that the dictionaries are just simply to help you with the English language or the respective language. That's just an observation. And the other thing is, as a language teacher, and I'm thinking of Chinese English or English Chinese dictionaries, some of the teachers from experience don't allow their kids or their students to actually use, online dictionaries. They require them to use the hard copies because they want them to learn how to use it. And that's just something that I want to throw out there. So there are some attempts, very, very small level for sure to make sure that people know how to actually use a dictionary, a foreign language dictionary. These aren't questions so much, they're comments.
I think as long as there are such dictionaries around, it's great for people to learn how to use them. If the day comes when they aren't around, then people will just have to do all that stuff online. And that's where a lot of them are doing it now anyway.
Great, thank you. And our
Thank
next
you.
question is from Andrea.
Yes, good afternoon or good evening. I'm
Hi.
from Moldova, and
Ah.
here is night. But I want to ask my question because it was very interesting. And I'm a first year PhD student in multilingual study of pedagogical terms. My corpus is based on English, Romanian, German, and Albanian. And my question is, as an expert in this field, would Gemini AI and Copilot be good starting points for comparing the efficiency of translated data?
For comparing the efficiency of translations, you say?
Yes.
I think it depends on the languages. If they are big languages, well, let's say if you're looking at say German and English, then sure, because those are big languages. If you're going to put in Albanian or I don't know,
Romanian.
It's a much smaller language. It does have a digital presence, but it's in a different league than English and German. So I'm not sure that I would trust the results. I think it would be okay to use the chatbots to get an idea, but don't imagine that what you're seeing is the definitive answer.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you for joining from Moldova. I've never spoken with anyone from Moldova before.
But you know for sure Maya Sandu, our president.
Yeah.
She did Harvard in the US, so she's our president, and we are very proud of her.
Oh, good.
Yeah. That's great.
But Moldova is near Ukraine. We are near a war, but
Yeah.
still we are doing research.
Yeah. Well, keep yourself safe, huh?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and then next we have a question from Laura, our NML president. I think you're muted.
There she is.
Okay. All right. So you can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Yes. So listening to your presentation, it's very interesting, and it really sparked a lot of questions in my mind about dictionaries and language research. So one issue that I wondered if it could be an area of work for lexicographers, or if they're how involved they might be in working with researchers who are focusing on reviving languages that are nearly extinct or already extinct, extinct being defined as no living native speakers. In other words, the languages uh, are being lost. And we've had some speakers who are talking about working with Native American languages for which they are in the nearly extinct or already almost extinct situation. So I mean, it seems like this could be an important, of course, it depends on funding, I guess, to have people get funded to do this kind of work. But um, all languages carry cultural information, and when the language is completely lost, that cultural information is also lost.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? Does the question make sense?
It does, yeah. And lexicographers are very actively involved in that. The Dictionary Society of North America has a conference every 2 years. I hosted that conference in 2023 at my university in Colorado, and the theme of that conference was endangered and native North American languages. We had a lot of really good talks, really good papers. Um, my impression from that was that Canada at the moment is a lot more successful with that, making a lot more progress than the United States because, again, the funding. The Canadian government seems to be a lot more forthcoming with funding for lexicographers and other language researchers to interface directly with the communities where there might be only half a dozen speakers left, and they are actively documenting everything those speakers know, recording it, um, talking with a bilingual speaker who can help them to translate into a bigger language. So, yeah, you're right. Lexicographers are very involved in that already, not only in North America, but really all over the world. But as we said already, it depends on funding. Um, it doesn't take a whole lot of money, but it does take some money. You have to be able to send people out to these communities because they often live in places where they can't be brought to the cities. And obviously, if you're going to do linguistic field work, the place to do it is in the field. You don't want to pluck the rare speaker out of their native environment and then bring them to a place they've never been before and then expect them to be able to illustrate their language for you. You want to talk to them where they live. So, yeah, it takes money, and it is happening. Not happening as much as anyone would like it to, but it is happening.
And just a follow-up question. This is for Martin as well as yourself, Warren. We were talking about African languages such as Berber and and the fact that they created a new writing system for Berber, which most people don't know what it is, and so on. We had a speaker about almost a year ago on his topic was African scripts today, and he was focusing on the rise of a fairly large number of linguists who are Africans and who are creating new scripts for writing their languages because I feel that using, say, the Latin alphabet just leads to mispronunciation of the language. Um, so there's quite a movement, and dozens of these new scripts are being created across Africa from what we got from this presentation. And he didn't really bring up this issue that people can't read the new scripts. I mean, they're creating new symbols, but they're trying to do it in a way that will give the opportunity for people to correctly pronounce the language and to write in the language. So I thought I'd mention that as another issue, I guess, that is very complicated.
Yeah, it is complicated for the reasons that you mentioned. The advantage of developing a unique script is that you can uniquely represent the sounds of that language. And that's been going on for a long time. Arabic, for example, has many sounds that don't exist in English. And when Arabic is transliterated, written in the Latin alphabet, you lose a lot of things. And that was the thinking with Berber. They wanted to be able to represent the sounds of Berber uniquely with unique characters. But then the disadvantage is that if the script is unfamiliar, are you just creating another stumbling block to possible widespread use of the language? If they have to learn not only the language, but they have to learn an entirely new and unfamiliar script, is that just making things more complicated than they need to be? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a hard problem.
Yeah. Kind of an example of that is, I don't know, well, I'm a student of Chinese, along with Greg and Gary and other people who are here could speak on this perhaps better than myself. But so the Chinese government um, developed a system, what they call pinyin,
Hmm.
um, for Romanizing Chinese in a way that, if it's understood correctly, would enable the learner to correctly pronounce the Chinese language, although they don't have the tones in there, which is a big problem. But there were previous romanization systems of Chinese created by missionaries, which just confused people and almost always resulted in mispronunciation of the Chinese language, even though written in the Latin alphabet. But um, so these things are complicated issues, and it's a there are always trade-offs, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, because if people are looking at, I say, going back to Chinese, um, the president of China, Xi Jinping, okay, the X is pronounced like that, but people are looking at that and they don't know how to pronounce the X, or there's a Q in there, they don't know how to pronounce that. So it comes out messed up.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
A further complication, if you're going to use an unfamiliar script, is that uh, computers are really primed on more than anything on the Latin alphabet. In other words, all of basic ASCII was developed for the English language without any diacritics, without any accents, because that's what English has got. We don't have accent marks. We just want to present it. And then little by little things get added to ASCII. But if we're going to develop a new script for every unique language and sound in the language, how are we going to code all these things? How are we going to make them appear online? So yeah, you're right. It's a complicated issue.
yeah, and I just want to reiterate, I really enjoyed your talk, and I found it very stimulating and informative. So thank you so much for taking the time and coming to address us today.
Oh, happy to do it, and happy to see so many people here, especially so many familiar names. I haven't seen all your faces, but I do recognize many names in the list, and thanks for coming.